Host of Future TV from Possibility to Reality. And I'm back with one of my favorite people in the whole world. And I do say that about all of my guests. But the delightful person I'm bringing you today is Wai Cheung, the creator of the Reaction Code, and someone who has been a mentor and a collaborator of mine for close to a decade. We met back in, yeah, I know, we're old. But we're young at heart, we're young at spirit. And when we met back in 2015, well, let's just say the world looked a bit different. We hadn't had the pandemic yet. We hadn't had Brexit yet or a Trump presidency in America. We hadn't had a lot of things yet. So the world as we know it has moved on. And here at Future TV, we are all about the future. So I'm highlighting and bringing you Wai and his wisdom today because of how well and how much he's working towards bringing the new culture and the new evolution of humanity that we all want now, but we can't see through the tree branches because it all looks like the world's a bit, well, let's just say gone to shit. And we're all confused. Things are accelerating. We're like, what is going on? So before we dive into the deep stuff, why don't you share a little bit more about who you are and what you're a stand for, what you do and why you said yes to come and have a chat with me today and share it with all our friends.
Well, thank you for having me on. For just to start with, obviously as you've already mentioned, we've known each other for quite a while now. I didn't realize it was as long as that. Actually, time really does fly, doesn't it? So, for people who aren't aware of me yet, I work with heart-centered professionals who are trapped in work that's draining the life out of them. So, and we remember those days, don't we? So,
yes.
And what I do is I help them to work out what their purpose is and break through their own internal barriers so they can start creating a work life, doing something they really love, and with any luck, making a big difference for the world around them. So My name is Wai Cheung. I am the creator of the Reaction Code and the founder of Transform Your Work Life. And there I try as much as I can to help people. I think the simplest way to put it really is the thing that I really am trying to achieve is to try and have everyone, we have to big everybody in the whole world, as many people as possible, reduce all the unnecessary conflict that they've got going on inside. Whether it's your old traumas, whether it's beliefs, we get told tons of things from teachers tell us one thing, our parents tell us something else, we see something else in the news, and as you've already mentioned, it's confusing. There's so much stuff going on, and it's very easy to get pulled off center. So I think really the bottom line is what I'm trying to do is trying to get everyone to the point where, or as many people as possible, to the point where they are congruent inside themselves. The way they think, the way they feel is aligned. So any action that they take is just authentic, is for real. And when we're in people in that position, in that stage, you're much less likely to go out there and use up your energy from a place of fear, anger, hate, all that kind of thing, because you don't need that anymore. That's not what's going on inside you. If you're coming from a place of congruence and alignment, then the things you're going to do are going to be for the benefit of everyone. Yeah. So that's my hippie way of trying to save the world.
Yeah, and you're very good at it, and I know I can speak from personal experience. So for those of you watching and listening, the concept of finding purpose and meaning in your work, as well as getting paid for it, is not a new concept for you. You've probably been working on it for a while now.
Yeah.
But this still is rather revolutionary or evolutionary, depending on how you see it, from a paradigm perspective at work. This is not the common viewpoint of the world of work. Not yet. It's what we're here to create and do and deliver upon. So many people watching are probably having these kinds of conversations with the one or two people in their life who do think this is the future of work, but we're still a little bit of like a cult minority. We're still a little bit of we don't have the critical, a nice cult though. We don't have the critical mass, and we are bumping up against every day that we go to work. We're bumping up against that majority, let's call it unconscious mindset, or, having purpose in work is not normal. What do you see? And I'm sorry, I gave you a list of questions and this kind of isn't one of them. So sorry to just drop you in the deep end. What do you see as the future of work? Of course, yes, there will be a point in time when this is normal, but what do you think the step in between is to help us navigate through the global unconsciousness to make this the ordinary world of work?
Well, I think when we were growing up, we were already getting to the point where we could recognize that the things we were being told and being taught about there being a job for life, that you go into a company, you work your way up, you get to the top where you work your way there, and then you wait, and then you get your pension, and then you go off happily into the sunset. I mean, I think when we were growing up, we already saw that wasn't happening. Companies were going under, people were getting fired, all that kind of stuff. It wasn't the job. I think job for life ended maybe about 2 or 3 generations ago. But
Probably.
the beliefs around it and the thing that we get taught, even now when people go into school, that they're still being taught that, oh, you want to get a good job, you want to work hard, and you'll work your way. We know personally from our own personal experiences, and definitely from your experience, it doesn't work out that way. You have to kind of make your own way. Now, I think the current generation, like for instance, the kids leaving college now, I say kids, this shows our age, they're 20-something years old, they're kids. But the kids leaving college now, I think they have a good sense that they have to carve their own path now. This isn't something that they'll just pop into. I mean, I've got friends who went to work at the typical sort of places like Goldman Sachs and all that kind of thing. And even then, they still found that there wasn't a straight way forward. You have to make your own way. And with that's what's going on. And as we're recognizing that more, if we've got to make our own way, well, why should we make it in the mold that we've been given? It doesn't make sense, because that mold we've already realized is broken. So we have to create our own molds and find our own ways. And how do we go about doing that? Well, we've got to start with the things that we love doing. Otherwise, what's the point? What's the point spending officially 38 or 36, or what is in the UK, 37 and a half hours or something, or 36 hours working week, but whatever, the official thing. But we were working probably at 70 or 100 hours. But you do all that and spend all that time each week being miserable.
Yeah,
it just doesn't make any sense. And nowadays, I think there's less of I mean, these things still matter, but the money, the status, the fame, all those kind of things, I think people are starting to realize and see that that's maybe not the most important thing if you're going to be miserable with it.
Yeah. And I think we see that, I don't know if it's millennials or Xennials, I think we call the generation after millennials. And I identify as being an old millennial as opposed to a young Xer.
Right.
But apparently, I think it's the millennials and not the Xennials, or maybe it's the Xennials, but a new generation have declared that purpose is actually really important to them. In fact, it's one of the larger driving factors. In fact, they don't want to do burnout, highly paid, status driven jobs. But you're also the parent of 2 children, who I think are even after the Xennials. So what, share with us a little bit about your parenting. What is it like parenting a generation that already the generation before them there's no template, like that they are in uncharted, they can't copy future generations. How is that impacting your parenting?
I think, if anything, they're leading me. The way that's impacting the parenting is, I mean, I'm telling them straight that this is the world as it is. I don't say it in a way that is a bad thing. I don't think it's necessarily a good thing that we just jump onto a conveyor belt and then work and then just be, sit on that conveyor belt up to wherever. We've seen that happen, and the wrong people end up in the wrong jobs, or the right people, the wrong jobs, or the wrong people, the right jobs, whatever, but people end up in the wrong place because they've just gone on this conveyor belt. I remember in my, so far back now, my corporate work, we had engineers who've been promoted to become managers because they did a good job as an engineer, but they loved engineering. They didn't want to become an administrator. It was the worst thing possible for them to be promoted into something that they hate doing. So, my son's already, the youngest one's 12 and the oldest one's 17. And they've already got a very clear idea on the kind of things they want to do. And doing it by themselves, not necessarily, okay, fair enough. The younger one would actually love to have a job designing for Lego. So if there's any Lego people watching this thing at the moment, please get in touch. He's got a few years of schooling left yet, but he's already doing his own animations and designing things himself. And the older one has already got a very clear image of what he wants to do, which is music. He wants to produce music, and he's into conscious hip hop and rapping and things like that. So, and he's already got an idea of, right, I'm going to need to do this. He's got a bigger YouTube channel than I have. He's got a much larger following, and he's already starting to work towards building a course and monetizing, and I'm helping him build the course. And he's 17. Yeah, because they've got examples. They've seen other people at their sort of age and maybe just a bit older than them who've been able to make a success out of these kind of things. You don't, like, for instance, on something like YouTube, you don't even have to have millions of people. You can just have the right number of people, and then you can make enough of a living so you can then spend time doing what you really love doing. And even better if it is actually that thing. So they're not thinking of, we're going to go into this job, then we're going to work for ages, and then we're going to become the manager. That model doesn't even exist for them.
Yeah. Thank God.
Yeah. And so now I can focus on just purely helping them to try and figure out the things they love doing and getting really good at those things. And also, even more importantly, being a good, strong, congruent, aligned human being. So whatever they get on to do, they're going to do well in, because they're not fighting within themselves.
Yeah. And I think this is a really important message for entrepreneurs or intrapreneurs in the corporate space, because if you've already, so for example, I'm a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant. So I am either an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur, depending on how I'm delivering my work or what the the contractual arrangement is between me and my clients. So I run in that world, and even though I feel like I've really integrated my purpose into my work and that I'm doing purposeful work, when it comes to me leading future generations and understanding the motivations, I have to help other people of power develop their entrepreneurial skills in the same way that as a parent, you've had to learn. I mean, you're already an entrepreneur anyway, but you now have to become one de facto, even if you weren't in your profession, to help your children fulfill on what they want to create for work in their lives. So there's like a necessity, it's like an imperative for all generations, especially those that are caregiving either as parents or in organizations, to understand these motivations of future generations, because there will come a point in time, and gosh, the closer and closer we get to it, the more I start to understand my own parents. Is like there is a point in time we're already feeling like they're teaching us, where that gets even deeper to they take care of us. Which, okay, let's step back off the ledge. We're not that old, but like it's we will have to face it. So with that in mind, I want to pivot a little bit to helping people and organizations discover their purpose. So already people watching are very purposeful, but inside of organizations, that can be a little harder to express. So maybe and I would almost think of it like a spectrum, like a purpose meter. like you're aiming to be a 10 out of 10, but some days you might go to work and you're like a 3 out of 10, or some days you might be a 7 out of 10. What would you say to people who are in the earlier stages of integrating their purpose into work, that are maybe still running the hobbies, the side hobbies and the side hustles, how to bring those pieces together, the purpose, the passion, the talents with the monetization?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things within that, because the first thing is, if someone is in a job, like say for instance, I mean, I suppose I'm assuming quite a lot of your audience might be in the corporate world or corporate life. We'll take an example. We've both been in the corporate world. You still have one foot in there, but you can step out anytime you like, which is great. So in the corporate world, you're doing work that if you're already stressed out and under pressure for the fact that you already recognize I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I mean, a lot of the clients I'm working with, they're fairly senior level in companies in the corporate world, and they've got to the point where they realize, hang on a minute, I don't actually understand why I'm doing this anymore. Not in the way that I'm doing this. I don't know who I'm really working for. I'm working to try and improve the share price by a few pence, but what does that actually mean? It doesn't, it's that sense of meaninglessness, that where I'm putting so much effort, I'm killing myself here for what appears to be at the other end of it, not a lot. So it's really hard to be in that position and also be thinking, oh, what else can I be doing? And what could I be doing to find out what my purpose is? And how could I create another thing, when you're just basically surviving at that particular point? So the first thing I would say to people is they need to stabilize themselves where they are. Don't do anything crazy. Don't jump off a cliff and hope for a soft landing.
Don't quit your day job. I did that a few times.
Yeah. I mean, yes, we know there's a Starbucks down across the road who are hiring, but that's not necessarily the path for everybody. Okay, not everybody makes it out of there.
Yeah, the reference to Starbucks is a very real one. I have worked there, and I still am a big fan.
But so what I tell a lot of my clients, first thing you don't do anything drastic and crazy. The first thing we need to do is we need to stabilize where you are at the moment, because a lot of times it's because that whole sense of frustration builds into doubt and desperation and all the rest of it, and people do end up doing something silly in order just to get themselves out of that situation. And of course, they get themselves in another situation where they're even more desperate, and they'll go get another job that's exactly the same. They'll feel happy with it for a short while, but then later on they'll realize, wait a minute, I've landed right back here again. Yeah. So the first thing is get stable with where you are. And I'm talking about internally, the way you react to your situation, the emotions, the thoughts, all the psychology, all that stuff. Get that stabilized, get that sorted out. And then from there, you can then start working out what it is that's meaningful and purposeful for you. Now, as you've mentioned, sometimes there might be hobbies that you do. And the question then would be coming from, hold on, I'm the national manager of this, blah, 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 blah. How is my cake baking going to make me the same kind of income that I now have to have? So the next step is then to take the things that you love doing, whether it's baking cakes. And by the way, I think there's some YouTubers out there, and not all about YouTube, but YouTubers out there who are baking cakes on videos and doing really well. Thank you very much. I've got one former client who runs a recruitment firm in the city of London, and she enjoys the cake baking bit and the videoing the cakes way more than she does that other part. And eventually I can see she could go that way and make a business out of that. But the thing is, you identify what it is that lights you up, the things that you do that you can feel inside. It's almost like that inner glow happens inside when you're doing it. And that sense that, if I wasn't getting paid to do this, which most of you probably aren't right now, if I wasn't getting paid to do this, I'd do it anyway. Is that kind of attitude. And then following that, there was a process, I think you'll remember this, called the value you provide process, whereby you look at the things that you do, and if there's anything that you do that others gain benefit from, then put those things in a list and look at what benefit each person gets from that. And then from that, look at what they get from having that benefit. and then having that benefit, and then having that benefit. And before long, you'll be pleasantly shocked and surprised how much value you actually have got, even in the things that you do that you don't currently get paid for. But being able to understand that means that you can either go entrepreneurial and start creating something in that direction, or if you want to stay in that corporate world, but you want to carve your own path, you're then in a position where you're more able to clearly articulate and identify, understand, and articulate what it is you can do and the value that you can provide. And then you just take it to your, your line manager next level and go, right, I want to create this, and for these reasons, and because this is what's going to be the outcome of it. And you can carve your path within the structures. So it doesn't always have to be, jump ship and then hope to build your own galleon. it's you can do it from within, because you've been in that situation where you've had direct reports. And if somebody came to you and said, hey, Katherine, I've got this really great idea. There's nobody doing it right now, but here's the benefit for it. And this is what would happen. This is the business case for it. Would you allow me some time to do this?
Yeah.
If you can see and you go, yeah, sure, great, let's do it.
Yeah, I would definitely find a way to make that work. I think entrepreneurship is actually a very big missing in most, unless you're in, I don't know, AI technology or something that's really, really newly being created. Most industries operate at such a glacial pace that it kills internal entrepreneurship, because leaders are so focused on delivering that 0.1% to the share price that any new idea is like, wait, what? Are you on a different planet? This is what we're focusing on. But you've got to allow people that space to be creative and entrepreneurial, and just help them out with the timing, or help them out with who to connect with on the idea, and not just vomit their ideas everywhere.
I think that's one of the biggest things that people in leadership positions can do to help everybody. It's just by connecting the dots, by just saying, okay, you've got this idea. It doesn't work for me. I don't know anything about it. But you know what? I know somebody else over here who I heard talking about that, or they were interested in that. Let's put you two together, or and that kind of thing, and actually actively do whatever you can to help somebody to get their idea going. Now, it might be that the idea then benefits your business or benefits your line. It might be they leave and they go somewhere else. But ultimately, if we think of it spiritually enough, it all comes back around. It just comes back around, and you never know when that person who then makes a success out of that in future, they then say to somebody, oh, hey, I know someone who's not happy where they are, but they've got these ideas that I remember they had when I used to work for them. Why don't you talk to them? And just passing that on all round, so that we find more of the right fit for the right people. Yes. I think that's the important thing. The jobs everywhere, and the jobs that you would love to do that I would hate to do, and vice versa. So we just make sure that we get into the ones that we like and not in the ones we don't like. There's so many possibilities out there, so many different people, that I think there's lots of opportunity there.
Yeah, I think you and I like quite similar roles, because we're pretty we're pretty like-minded and like-hearted. But I do want to touch upon I do want to ask you, go back to the script, basically, is what I'm trying to say. There is one question that I'm dying to ask you, from the context of you're someone who, for me, is a mentor or a sage or a wise person who is walking the path just a little bit in front of me. So, and at the same time, you're bringing your clients along on a journey, because we're all on the same journey. We just have different timing. So I'm curious, on your own personal journey of discovering with, engaging with, accepting, expanding, monetizing your purpose, what's maybe the most surprising thing you've learned on your personal journey so far? Or maybe what's the most common things that your clients are like, oh my God, I did not know when I, really clicked in my purpose it would be like this, or this would be the outcome, or this would happen?
I think, well, to take the first part, the part where you're asking what surprises me the most. When I first started going down this road, I was in a corporate role. I was in project management for BT, who was British Telecom. And at that time, I was looking to do something so completely different that I started going down the path. I mean, various things lead us to certain places. And the old idea with saying that when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. And when all our paths lead to the place where we're supposed to be. And it went from starting off with a back problem, leading me to finding an osteopath who was also into some woo-woo stuff, then experiencing the amazing effect that had, and then going full on daytime corporate, back in the evening woo-woo, crazy wacky stuff. And they're really surprised. And I've always kept those things fairly separate as much as possible. I brought in whatever part that I feel that the ordinary, you'll excuse the term, but the muggles might understand, might appreciate, but still be able to make use of it. But at the same time, kind of hiding the fact that it was something more to do with consciousness, more to do with deep, high-level awareness or spirituality, those kind of things. And what I've found has been really surprising is more and more people are accepting that side of things. They're not quite so freaked out. When I sort of tell them, okay, well, if we drop into the field of the heart, we're connecting up with the rest of the universe, and then we can actually send out copies of our own consciousness so they can start working some of the things before we even get there. Waiting for the slings, arrows, and the to be taken away and burnt at the stake. But no, people go, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. Okay, I'll try that. I'll do that. So I think what's happening is that, if you like, the morphic field, the mass consciousness of understanding that there is more to us just than the physical things that we do, than our minds, and there is much, much more, and we are more powerful than we think we are. The more that's becoming common, accepted knowledge, and people are becoming more okay with it, it's making it easier, actually, for people to be able to, I honestly, I think now, compared to 10 years ago, I think somebody could go from that twisted up, frustrated, can't stand where I am at the moment, to a place where they're totally comfortable within themselves, and they're already moving towards a purpose. I think it takes a lot less time now than it used to. It's like the whole mass consciousness has moved in the right direction. So it used to be the Richard Bransons or the Tony Robbins and people like that who could get away with talking about those kind of things, because we see them and think, well, yeah, they're a little bit weird anyway, so but they're successful, so it's okay. But now I think that started to filter down, so it's not just all the high level, really super rich business owners and so on who get to do this now. Now it's starting to filter down to everyone.
I find that really, really extraordinarily reassuring to hear.
Yeah.
To me, that's an indication. In fact, that's probably the best possible benchmark I could hear or see or understand about how human consciousness has risen in the last decade. Because this stuff used to be under the radar, and your internal struggle to isolate the two and to keep them separate. What I'm hearing is that it's also more okay for them to come together, that resistance. I mean, you've personally evolved a lot above average human in terms of development over the last decade, but also that what that signals about humanity as a whole. Whew, thank goodness. Oh my goodness, Wai. We're going to have to get you on another episode because we definitely got to keep this conversation going. Yeah. But I also want people to have the opportunity to connect with you and engage with you and your work. So why don't you end by sharing with us two things, actually. What's the future of Wai and the Reaction Code and your work over, let's say, the next year or two? And how can people get involved and connect with you?
Okay, thank you for that. So the reaction code is, I've already got the online course already put together and is out there. So that's the first part, just to get people introduced into this. And the whole, and just a little tiny bit of background for those who aren't familiar with it. The whole point of the reaction code is to have simple step-by-step, in fact, sometimes even just simple as 3 steps, identifying where the negative reaction is. I.e., I hate my job, and every time I think about it, I can feel the tension around my neck and my chest. Identify where it is, and wherever it is, there's only 2 types of things. It's either going to be somewhere that's deep inside, or it's going to be a pressure. So whichever one it is, use the appropriate tool for that, and then you come back and try and get that reaction back again. And 99 times out of 100, the reaction doesn't work anymore. It's changed. So the whole point of the reaction code is to reduce the amount of energy and time and effort that we spend on old reactions and old patterns. The reactions. You're actioning something that happened already in the past. So the less of that we've got going on, the more we've then got energy to work on the things we want to move towards. And the whole point of getting everyone to that place is then all our energies then can be used for creative, useful purposes, rather than for just fighting within ourselves or avoiding fighting within ourselves and blaming somebody else for how we feel and all that kind of stuff. It's really about taking ownership of what's going on inside ourselves and then making a change to do that, so that we can have that level of internal stability to then be able to go off and really have an impact on the world. Because you can't do that when you're in the middle of your own inner turmoil, because as soon as you build something, it will collapse under that foundation of mud. So we have to build that solid foundation underneath that. So if for all the efforts that we're going to do going into the future and finding our purpose and having a meaningful work life, only works if we can keep hold of that.
Absolutely.
And so that's the future of the reaction codes, is once again to try and expand it out and spread it to as many people as possible. I mean, I've got everyone from high-level CEOs and business owners right the way down to sort of primary school kids that can use this. So we know it's ubiquitous. It can be used across the board.
Amazing.
I've had one of my clients who was a leader of an academy. She had 2 schools underneath her, and she started using this with some of the troublesome kids, and they started becoming some of the best achievers. So
I love how I love how it's both applicable to the individual, but also you can engage with educators who are leading groups of people. So that way, you're really impacting the future. Since we were talking about your children earlier, this is really impacting the future of education as well. Not only the future of work, but also the future of education. So I'll put a link below so you all can check out Wai's work and engage in it in whatever level you feel called to. Wai, thank you so much again for being you, for making the difference you make, for sharing your wisdom with us today. And I can't wait to hear more. Take care.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye.